becomes very hard to read. But I recently kind of picked up on the way that he did it. I thought it was very ingenious, especially for a theological argument.
Darth doesn't know anything or understand anything about logic or reasoning.
Neither does anyone.
That's not true.
What? It doesn't follow.
Sorry, what doesn't follow?
That if Darth doesn't understand logical reasoning, then neither does anyone. That doesn't follow.
I didn't say if. I said that no one does, period. I was making a statement that literally no one really knows their thoughts exist. So how can anyone actually make an assertion?
Those are all false claims. There's just bullshit.
You can't make an assertion anything's false if you don't not know the truth.
Yes, you can.
How? Oh yeah, you can make an assertion, but it would be based on an on a presupposition that's not based in fact. Of course, if you want to go down that route, then you would just be an illogical incoherency.
Hold.
I apologize. I'm having supper. So no, nothing you've said, Rise, makes any kind of sense at all. These are just words that you heard, and that you're just parroting words and memes that you read somebody else said, or heard or saw somebody else say.
So basically, everyone here can assert that I mean, people think that I make no sense. I do not go by any sort of dogma or anyone else's principles. I have come to all of my own conclusions of my own accord, and it's all based on my relative perspective on how I view things. I do not speak dogma. I do not parrot people. That is something that I refuse to do, and I see happen all of the time. And that is why I told you there is a follower class, but the follower class is self-chosen.
Yeah, I don't think that's something you can claim. That's something that you're just going to have your peers intuit by the things that you say. And I mean, I'm just not seeing that, right? You're parroting Bill Maher and like mainstream, like anti-trope talking points. You know, the fact that the question is, I mean, it's like you've never thought about this. Hold on. It's as if you've never thought about this at all, Rice, because if all people care about being in office, being reelected to be in office and not the policies, then why do they care about being in office in the first place?
Power.
Does anyone do their job for money?
Power, right? Well, that's enacting policies, right? If it's not for the policies, then why do they want to be elected at all into power?
They're there to be on stage.
But they're not on stage.
They are. They very much are.
No, they're not.
People in the House are very.
What's the name of it? It's about the Medici, around the Medici time during the Venetian city-states in the 1200s.
Oh, fuck me.
It's the Borgias. That is a perfect example of this is what politics is in relation to actually like the supposed nature of like politics is, in the same way as the Borgias are to the Catholic Church and the supposed faith. This is the same relation, because it's never about, whenever you have a centralized structure, it's never about the actual mission. It's all about getting power within the centralized structure. Yeah. Power and money.
Right.
We're going off the rails here.
Yeah, you're just making broad, sweeping, general claims without any evidence to back up your claims. It's all bullshit.
People act in their own self-interest. Prove me wrong. Cheers.
It's in my interest, if I'm an elected representative, it's my interest to follow the will of the people to get elected.
Or to make at least seem like you're following the will of the people. Yes, of course. And if you have a bad cop to play against,
so you agree with me. So you agree with me So you agree with me that Jesus.
Act in what is perceived to be the best interest of the people, yes.
Right. So there we go. I just refuted everything you've said in the last 20 minutes.
Oh, I've agreed that it's what is perceived to be in the interest of the people. Yes, of course. That's how everyone acts.
It's just not actually in the interest of the people.
Of course. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So when Democrats fight for the ACA, which was to reform health insurance to give more people access to health care, that wasn't actually in the interest of people to get more access to health care, right?
Obamacare was probably the worst policy of healthcare I've ever seen in my life.
You don't know the first thing about it. You don't know the first thing about it.
Is better. No, universal healthcare is probably better. Even privatized is better.
It would be better.
The shit show that turned out to be Obamacare is absolutely a complete monstrosity. If you look at what happened, it skyrocketed premiums for self-employed.
No, it didn't. No,
yes,
that wasn't.
Did. No. I actually know because
No, you actually don't.
My parents' insurance premiums went up by over 100%, and they are self-employed. That happened to a lot of people.
Yes,
maybe you don't know because you're not in that position. But yes, it did.
Yes, I'm not disputing that their insurance went up. It wasn't caused by the ACA.
It wasn't caused by the ACA. Are you kidding me?
No, I'm not. It was known at the time.
Yeah,
everybody knew
this it. This is going to be really embarrassing for you, Rise.
What do you think?
Hold on a second, Rise. Hold on a second, Rise. This is going to be really embarrassing for you, but insurance premiums have been on the rise since the 90s, before the ACA, if anything, and this is actually trackable. Go check out some graphs and some stats if you like. The increase in premiums has slowed down. Hold on, Rise, hold on a second. Relax. Let me finish, okay? If anything, the rise in premiums has slowed since the ACA. There you go. Now you can go.
Right. The ACA...
So just after the ACA was implemented, premiums did increase by...
That's called correlation. That's called correlation, Rise.
What is that?
Well, when you would add...
That's called...
I already agreed that the premiums have risen.
You were to look at the fact that
I agreed that the premiums have rose. The question is whether or not they rose at an increasing rate or a decreasing rate.
And whether or not...
They rose... They rose less... Sorry, go ahead.
And I stop and let people go when I understand that we're talking over each other. But basically, the ACA is not the cause of rising insurance premiums.
Shut up, Brenda.
And in fact, it helps slow the rise in the increase in insurance premiums.
I don't think that's accurate.
It was known at the time. It was talked about at that time.
I don't think.
It was talked about at that time. Everybody knew it. It was stated by the Democrats when they were passing it that it would slow down the rise in premium costs, but it wouldn't halt it completely because the rise in premiums is due to other factors that the ACA didn't address. Everybody knew this at the time.
Wait, so how much was it, the increase change?
What you need to do, Rise, is to back up your broad, sweeping generalizations.
Sorry, did you see what I posted?
And another thing I'd like you to work on is actually listening and not over.
Sorry, did you see what I posted?
And
I'm waiting for your evidence because
I would like it if you would not do that, please. Can you
Oh,
work
not
on that,
not
please?
post the. It looks like 3% to 9%. That looks like a.
Well, no, that's not what I'm talking about, Rise. I'm asking you nicely to stop over talking
Okay.
All right? Because you have a really bad habit of doing that, and then you don't listen to what the other person is saying, and then that just makes things all the much harder.
Can we get back to premiums?
How about we get back to your original claim?
Of doing that?
To your original claim, right? That your sweeping generalizations about elected officials and how they never have anybody's interest in heart, and all of those claims that Trump
their
is.
interest aligns with the individuals
I'm sorry. We're done. You can't stop over talking. We're done.
I'm sorry.
Rise, I don't think you have a crazy view.
And plenty of times it aligns.
Despite thinking that.
And plenty of times it aligns with the popular good, and so I'm not saying that people are trying to harm.
Well, some people are. Some people are trying to harm. Some aren't.
It's not about harm, it's about self-interest. And as long as you align people's incentives, you're going to get benefit. This is why cartel incentives will align with corrupt officials, and there's bribery. There's always, if you're able to align incentives properly, you can eliminate a lot of issues, and it's making sure that you are able to compensate the elements that can cause the most harm, and that you're able to make sure that everyone that is contributing enough and that is going to be potentially beneficial going forward is compensated properly, that you're going to be able to reform the system.
And how would we do that?
Something, for instance, like just legalizing drugs. Legalize drugs and incorporate the cartel.
How would legalizing drugs make representatives more responsive to their constituents?
Why do you think you would need to incorporate the existing cartel if you legalize drugs?
Other system.
Multinational. Let me finish my question, dumb bitch.
You're almost inaudible.
No,
I told you, but you're almost inaudible.
Oh, whatever. I'm really far out of town.
I'm just wondering,
Rise, human trafficking.
Rise. I was just wondering what legalizing drugs has to do with the political system.
If you legalize drugs and you were to incorporate the cartel has a lot of trafficking in terms of human trafficking and other activities that are illicit, that if you were to properly compensate people, and if you were to make their channels, and if you were to ensure that there was proper people that had been involved in the entire structuring, and you were then able to tax drugs, you were able to tax sales, then you would you'd ensure that this entire structure is not going to be used for other illicit purposes, and this entire structure is going to use to be a continuation of drug purposes. And so that way, all of these channels and all the people involved, instead of then turning to a different illicit substance or a different illicit activity, these people are now going to be gainfully employed and taxable and having taxable earnings and having
Oh my God, we get it.
You're inaudible, Claire.
So Rise, could you try again, and this time try to answer the question?
How does this help what?
Could you answer the question, please?
What didn't I answer?
Do you know what the question is?
I'm not really sure which one you're referring to, but I see this as
the last question I just asked you. It was just a minute ago.
Okay.
All right, that's to be fixed.
Would you like me to restate
Sure, why don't you reiterate exactly which point I didn't address?
Yes, so the complaint is that politicians are not responsive to the electorate. And I asked you what legalizing drugs, how that would change that relationship with politicians.
My question is, how many politicians currently are involved with illicit activities, or at least tangentially involved?
Why don't you just answer the question?
Bribery and activities that are beneficial to the cartel and that are beneficial to people gaming the system.
Could you just answer the question, please? Just answer the question. Do you remember the
Also
question?
eliminate bribery activities and
No,
help
no.
someone that have been used for illicit purposes,
Rise.
and politicians would
Rise.
help fund and it had been
Rise,
elected.
shut up. Shut up, Rise. Shut up. Answer the question.
I was trying to answer your question, but
No,
you just
do you remember what the question was?
how is this going to help make sure that politicians are aligned with the American people?
Yes. And how is legalizing drugs going to help with that?
Are you listening to my answer at all, or did you just try and tell me to shut up?
No, I heard your answer. It didn't have anything to do with the question.
It had everything to do with the question.
How so?
Were you about to say that by legalizing drugs it would stop politicians from accepting bribes?
Right, like, because
No.
can't give.
You're inaudible, Claire.
Can't give politicians
If you were
bribes.
to
No,
make
not,
the
Tom.
Yes,
You
you
are-
are, Claire. Yes, you are, Claire.
No
If
one
you
else
were-
will tell you because they're just, I don't know, just content with you just making them like sounding dumb and yelling.
Yeah, that's the best That's the best possible world.
It's just the two of you that can't hear me. You probably need to.
If you allow the entire drug structure to become a corporation, you were to allow the politicians that currently are accepting bribes for the cartels to then be getting benefits. Like if they were to get a share within that corporation and they were able to get like profit off of that company making money as opposed to getting it through bribes, and those politicians' salaries were raised, and maybe those salaries then, what if we tied those salaries somehow, if we tied those salaries and gave those politicians a bonus for when they for years in which GDP growth for their state actually increased, and tied the amount of bonus that they got to that. What if those politicians somehow were actually incentivized to benefit their populace as opposed to being able to take bribes, and those politicians were also given shares in the drug company, so they were able to profit off of that? What if we were able to make an arrangement where they would still get their benefits and they get even more benefits if they benefited their people? Why don't, in terms of financial incentive, why don't we try and structure something like that? That's what my goal would be, something like that, as opposed to trying to think that we can tell people that they should be selfless, because that'll never work.
So you're saying a vested CEO stock option, like we do that in American corporations every day.
I don't really think that would improve the problems with elected officials. I think it would make it worse. Don't they have an incentive already, anyways, Rise? They have an incentive to be responsive to their constituents already, don't they?
Of course not. They have an incentive to be responsive to what is perceived to be in their constituents' best interest.
So it's just you're just begging the question again. They have what? I mean, they have a incentive. If they want to get reelected, they have, that's the incentive, to be reelected.
Why even try and incorporate the fucking cartel? What incentive do they have?
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Like,
options in a cartel.
And then they would just
That's like the cartel will know.
Hold on. Right. And then they would just stop killing people. They would stop human trafficking. They would stop all that for stock options.
They got paid enough.
I guess.
If they got paid off enough, they would stop doing that.
That's a tautology. If they got paid off enough.
Yeah, sure, but I'm sure they make good money off of human trafficking right now.
I don't think elected officials make money off of human trafficking.
The cartel, Brenda.
Oh, I'm sure the cartel does, but I think they're probably going to make more off of, let's say that there's a family that gets shot in Mexico, and they happen to have ties to a Utah operation of human trafficking that, the cartel really wants to take over that market for drug operations, but the Mormons actually have that currently locked down in terms of territory? What if the cartel wanted that territory and that human trafficking had been going on through their routes that was going to Utah? What if, maybe they want to get rid of the Utah trafficking and the Utah.
Why are you babbling?
Yeah, what if
bears?
Yeah, well, big bears, really big bears. And what if we gave the bears AK-47s? What if we did that?
I bet you think that AR actually stands for assault rifle.
What if the Mormons gave all their daughters automatic rifles and had them patrol the borders? I mean, they've got a lot of daughters, a lot of 13-year-olds.
Oh yes, they do. They got a lot of wives too.
Yep, they give them all guns and put them on the border. Yeah, that's a rational response to my question.
So they actually use the trafficking routes, and actually, if you look into it, recently there were several people that were arrested in Utah in conjunction with drug trafficking operations. Several head people were arrested in September and October. I looked up that right after that Utah thing happened that happened because you had several people that were arrested in conjunction with this. I mean, it's. I'm not just making this out of my ass.
I saw this on Reddit.
Yes, you are. Well, yeah, I'm sure that it happened.
Something out of your ass. Maybe.
I don't think anything can come out of that something that small.
Okay, fine.
What's the claim?
Oh, and my bet is that they're going to actually have the cartel kill
right now.
The cartel.
This is just babble hour.
Is going to kill the Mormons that were in charge of it, so the Mormons don't get shamed for it, and then you have the illegal immigrants that are going to get framed.
You're such a fucking idiot, Rice. Oh my
It's
god!
all
I
right.
want to hear you peeking at like 1/10,000th of the universe around you and trying to conclude everything you possibly can off of that little tiny. Running black market organization. So how is a tax break going to overcome no tax?
You save the money that you're paying away in bribes, and you save the money that you're paying due to the fact that you're doing illicit activities with people going to jail.
The cost of bribes and lawyers and all of that is inconsequential compared to a fixed tax.
How do you got a 5-year tax break? Boss becomes CEO, huh? How do you determine which cartel boss becomes CEO?
Just put them all in a fucking
battle royale.
I want to point out something. So, when alcohol prohibition ended in the United States, it's not that the government incorporated the speakeasies; it's that those organizations independently did that themselves. The other thing to be pointed out is that it's not as though the Italian mafia became a legitimate organization in the United States. They just switched to running other things instead of running
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. You have to incorporate it. This is my point.
There is no it, you fucking moron. How many times do you need this explained? There's no thing that you can... Unless your suggestion is to take all the poor people in South America and just fucking give them nonsense jobs that make them rich, they're going to continue to find crimes they can use to...
What? It kind of ran out there.
Did I disconnect, or are you just stupid?
It just kind of tailed off.
It's pretty simple.
Yeah, Claire, your mic's real shitty.
The only reason drug cartels exist is because there are poor people in parts of the world, mostly in South America, that have no leg up except crime. So you can't just fucking incorporate them. Incorporate them into what? They have no skills like growing coke and shooting people.
They keep growing fucking coke. They keep growing coke for the same company. They just grow it for a company instead of a cartel organization that's illegal.
You think they're going to be content giving up their massive profit margin to work
Do you think the poorer people in South America are getting massive profit margins?
The ones that climb to the top do. They have the opportunity. You think
The ones at the top should get earn-out shares that are going to be worth millions and billions.
Finish. If you fucking pay attention to the legal markets between first and third worlds, you're never